Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Driven Leadership Podcast. This month, in case you have missed the first couple episodes, we are going through mindset. All the episodes in January are going to relate to fixed versus growth mindset. We've talked about imposter syndrome and how to overcome that. We have the second episode coming out later this month on that one. And we just wanted to start the year in the right way, overcoming those things, talking about how to develop growth mindset to start the year right. And this week's episode is very exciting because we have an incredible individual who lives this growth mindset every day, every year with her team. Today we have Kristina Hernandez on the podcast. She is the head coach of the beach volleyball team over at Stetson University. She's actually in her 12th season over there. And this conversation is incredible, listening how she has, this hands-on experience over 12 seasons and a history before that on athletic teams, developing individuals, developing teams to be able to overcome these fixed mindsets that they may come in with, especially with college athletes. So a few stats about Kristina before we get into it. She is a 7-time conference champion, 4-time coach of the year, and the 3rd winningest beach volleyball coach in NCAA history. So this conversation is amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed being able to sit in on this, listening to her and Mary talk through her history, talk through her experience developing mindset and her philosophy behind it. So again, please welcome Kristina Hernandez to the show.
I'm super excited to have Kristina Hernandez on here. She is the head women's coach for, it's not just, it is a women's sport, Stetson Beach Volleyball. And I have the funniest story how we ever met. So I had posted something on Instagram. We were working with another sports team, and I get this message that says, "Hey, I'm interested in what y'all do and, sports and communication." So we get on this call, and you didn't know anyone who had been through any of our programs. Nobody had told you about us. You just found us on Instagram. And she goes to bold, unbeknownst to what she was getting herself into. And so she's like, "Oh," and I kept saying, "This is different. Like, we're chatting and I have a different role." And I'm like, "Oh, please, Kristina, just stay with me here. Stay with me here." But to watch you come through a class like that, not knowing anyone, is a true testament to who you are as an individual. Someone who, we talk about running to the roar. It's facing those fears and doing the hard work and facing adversity and having that growth mindset. That is who you are. And then we got to come in and work with your team. And just to watch you over the past year and a half and getting to know you, I can't wait to dive into this because you are this. You live the topic of leadership, mindset, using adversity as that fuel to launch you. And so it's just, I'm excited to start this day with you. Like, and Heidi, when I first met her, she's like, boom, just fired. And I'm like, oh, we're going to have some fun.
My only mindset going into that, I was like, it's a competition and I need to win. Like, that was gosh. Literally like, and it's not even that, but that was like literally for the first hour I was just scanning the room and I was like, who's my competition here? Like, who? And it was Eric who was in our club. Like, that was the other. I was like, oh, that's the person. And then by like the second session, that wall totally comes down. Yeah. And I wasn't trying to win anymore. But yeah, I just saw everything online. And when I was reading it, I think the thing that it was kind of like a boot camp, like a leadership boot camp. And then it was like, yeah, like you had to be a high performer. Like that was kind of like in the language. And I think for me, for me, the more the challenge, the more I get excited about it. So that's really why, I wanted to do it and I had no idea what it was. But I've grown so much in the last, it's been over a year now. But I still find myself like constantly changing and honestly being able to deal with adversity better. Not that I'm like immune to it now or that's easier. It's just like, I feel like I process it in a different way where I know that on the other side, there's something that's going to be better on the end of it. And I really see it in like a positive light now, even though the first like couple of days of it might be really challenging, but I know that it's going to eventually lead to something that I need later on for myself, like to help equip me with something else and some type of, just strength basically. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you take us through the journey of how you ever became a coach?
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, fairly similar. I guess I've always been like this. So I mean, I played indoor in college and beach wasn't really a thing, but I always knew I wanted to coach. And I always knew I wanted to coach in college. Like there was nothing below that for me. It wasn't, I didn't want to do club or high school or like I just wanted to do college. I knew I wanted to be at the highest level that I could possible. I always knew that from day one. So when I graduated college, I was actually supposed to go to Berkeley I got into grad school for Berkeley. So that was my original plan. So I moved out there and I emailed, and this is back then. So there's no cell phones, no social media. I emailed literally every single college coach, like within 2 hours of where Berkeley was going to be, just saying like, hey, do you need help? I'll volunteer, like anything to get my foot in the door. And only one coach emailed me back. And it was from St. Mary's in Moraga, which is maybe like an hour or so from where I was going to stay in San Francisco, because I ended up living in San Francisco. So I ended up like having 3 other jobs just so I could volunteer there, like in college with him. I taught middle school PE in like inner city San Francisco, which was like, oh my gosh, this is torture.
Talk about adversity.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, and it's so, going into PE, it was just totally, all those teachers were like, why are you planning stuff? And I'm like, I can't roll balls out here. Like and just be a normal PE teacher. Like it's not my style. So, and then, so I would do that during the day, and then I would go coach club in Berkeley, and then I would drive to Moraga to go volunteer. So I spent like 3 hours a day in traffic just so I could do that. And then 6 months after that, I ended up applying for a head coaching job at Loyola in Maryland. And the only reason I did it is because when I did a lot of research, I was like, oh, well, it's kind of not a great program, but it's a great school. They had previously had a younger coach. So I applied, no like expectation. I get a call back and they brought me on the interview. And the first thing they told me, they literally picked me up from the airport, and I was 21 at this point. I mean, I had just graduated college. And they told me, they were like, oh, well, even if you don't get this job, like we thought that this would be a really great experience for you. And that was it for me. It just triggered
competition.
I was like, oh, here we go. And so then the whole interview, I was like so confident I was like, I know I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z and budgets and this and that, but I was like, I know how to win. I know what to do this and blah, blah, blah. And they ended up hiring me, and it was honestly the best environment for me to start, because they genuinely like were so patient with teaching me everything else that kind of had to go in with it. And then just letting me kind of mess up a lot and figure it out as I went. But I was solo, like I didn't have any assistants. I had to do everything myself, like film this, that. I mean, I did everything, and I was 20, 21, 22. And we ended up like, turning that into a winning program within like 4 years. And then Hofstra called me after that. And then after that, it was here, and beach just kind of like fell in my lap here. Like I had originally come here to do both, but mostly indoor. And beach had kind of just started as a sport. Like it was like within the first year or so. So I did both, and I was literally doing 2 practices a day. I was doing indoor and then coming to here, or vice versa. And we were so good here so fast. Like I got here in the spring of 14 and March, and we won our first conference championship a month later. And then we were ranked in the top 10 the very next year. And then that just totally like, we separated, no more indoor. And then that there becomes my life as a beach volleyball coach for I'm going into year 12 now. So everything happened like, honestly, with the plan and route of me doing something else. And then it branched off into this kind of like different road where I kind of just went with it. And then the next thing kind of happened, which is like nothing happened as I planned. Like I didn't go to Berkeley. I ended up not going. Like I didn't do this. I didn't do indoor here. So nothing that I had in my mind that I was going to do or how I was going to do it actually happened. It happened like totally unplanned. But yeah, really just kind of going with it. And that's how it started. And that's where I am.
And how many rings do you have? I have a picture of her somewhere with like all these rings on every one of her fingers.
I have nine. I have nine with all the places. I have 7 here, one at Hofstra, and then I have 9. So it's fun.
It's so fun. She goes, "You talk about competition. Let's drop it."
I used to feel bad sometimes. I'm like, and then my previous boss, who she left here, she was like, "You got to own it," and I was like, "You're right. They're my rings. I'm not going to feel bad about it."
Well, so we just did a podcast on mindset, and literally what you were just saying is everything that has to do with a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. And that mindset, we have the fixed and the growth, and it's not one or the other. Sometimes we have growth in an area, fixed another, and it's that awareness. But what you did is what a lot of people don't do. And when hardship is there, when adversity is there, instead of bowing and running away from it, we talk about run to the roar, where the roar is that it's your greatest fear, right? It's the thing that it scares the shit out of you. Mm-hmm. And the fixed mindset runs back away from it, goes, they'll make excuses, justify. But what you did is you ran to it and you said, bring it. Let's go. You don't know anything. You are 21, 22 years old. Your brain is not even developed. And you're like, but I love that, because that mindset is truly what changes everything. We have the choice in everything that happens. We can either make the excuse, go back into our comfort zone, the safety, blame, justify, and never get to where we want to go. It could have been, I didn't get to go to Berkeley. No one's going to take me. Or actually run to it and say, bring it. What does life have for me? Could you imagine, Kristina, if you would have not done that route?
No.
And just
I don't even
yeah. So how do you teach that?
And I think it's hard. It's not that it's hard. I think it's easy. It's not easier for me, but I think I've always had that. I didn't really learn about growth mindset until I think, Carol DeWitt came out with her book, and then, all of that stuff kind of, I think maybe 10 years ago, where it really became like, started being published and things like that were happening. But I think like, even in that moment with making that decision to like go or not go, when I was deciding whether to like become a head coach or not, and I was 21, everybody told me what they thought I should be doing, like, well, just keep volunteering and you'll eventually get into the Pac-12 and you'll do this and, you'll eventually become an assistant. Like everybody told me what they thought the route is that I should be going. And the only person that didn't was the St. Mary's coach, who was like, you'll never be ready to be a head coach until you actually do it. And then he was like, and when you get there, then you just have to figure out how to win. Like, that's on you. And so that's how I really try to teach and train, is that we don't maybe know how to do it yet, and we don't have the answers yet, and it's probably going to be super messy and super sloppy and make us really uncomfortable. But that means we're like in the good stuff. Like, that's the good stuff. I tell our players all the time, I don't want to go into practice and pat ourselves on the back and be like, oh, we had a really great practice today because it ran smooth, looked pretty, everybody did perfect reps. Like, that's not real. And I almost feel like we fail when we do that because it's too pretty. So and it's not easy. It's not easy for the players. I think we do have a lot of players that are very fixated on, we talk about black and white. We're like, I'm either good today or I'm not. And for me, I'm like, it's not. It's just, are we evolving today? And I try to tell them if out of the 4 reps we're trying to do, if you get one right just a little bit and it feels a little bit right, like we're on a good path, because tomorrow it'll be a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And so I really try to do that with how I talk to them, train them. I'm okay with the sloppy stuff. I'm okay with the messy stuff, and not, it's messy and sloppy sometimes, but it's also like crafted that way, right? Like I want to make sure that I'm putting them in high stress situations where they're problem solving their way out of it and feel good with figuring it out while I'm guiding them through it, not giving them the answers, but really like, hey, what were we thinking there? What did we see there? What else can we think about? And then really trying to get them to understand how they're reacting. Like we always like, they only have a choice. They can either react negatively or they can try to solve the problem. So we always try to stay in problem solving mode. And there's no easy way to do that. It's just a constant thing. And every single touch we have, but I want them to feel okay with that because we're okay with that. And that's essentially what builds that grit and resilience is their ability to really grind through that and work through that and know that they can figure those things out by themselves. And beach is a really cool sport because we can't coach a lot during matches. So we have to teach them that skill set. It's not like indoor or any other sport where they can turn around and ask us what they should be running, what they should be doing. They have to know how to manage the game by themselves. So we have to be able to put them in those environments because it's just the way the sport is really crafted and really played. And if they feel like they need everything just to work out perfectly for them, or even the game plan work out perfectly how it was supposed to be, then they're going to fail because it doesn't work like that with beach. Even when we make game plans, we're like, this is just a template. Like this is probably none of this is going to happen. Like just be prepared for none of this to happen. So even when we talk, I'm like, even when we talk through game plans, I'm like, okay, well, she could do X, Y, and Z, but she may not today. She may do something else. I don't really know. And then the lineup changes and those things can really throw some people off too. So we try to really not put them in a box with what should be happening and not happening.
Do you feel like your athletes are receptive to that kind of mindset, or have you seen that there's like a large learning curve, a small learning curve? Like, does the switch flip? What does that look like from the coaching side of guiding these college students through that?
Yeah, mindset? I mean, there's some that pick it up easier than most. There's some that are already like, I think if they've been in that for a while, and even just from a personal standpoint, like me, like they live life like that, I think it's easier for them to grasp onto, right? Because they thrive in those moments. Where I said the ones that are a little bit more black and white, I feel like it can take anywhere from almost 6 months to almost a year where we really crack through without having to remind them like, hey, this is that moment. Like, this is the response we're talking about. This is not helping us. What else can we do here? But I also find that when we really talk about it more in a behavioral standpoint, where, hey, these are the behaviors that are helping you and these are not. And then it kind of clicks for them a little bit better with how, again, like the body language, how they're mentally responding. And I think when we actually can give them some real triggers to that, those things that are triggering them in those moments, and they recognize it a little bit more and then they can work on it. So that's like this 6 months for this team, like obviously the returners, it's much easier for them. Like they recognize it. They may not be like 100% knowing how to do it, like knowing how to work through it yet, but they at least recognize like, oh, okay, this is what you're talking about. Like this is that moment. I need to be better here. And then the new ones, I think we're at a place now where they're on the cusp of recognizing it. They are very receptive to how we're telling them what's helping, not helping, what path we want them to go on. And a lot of that comes from building trust, right? Knowing that we trust them and care about them. And we're only doing this for, them to grow and learn. A lot of film, same thing, watching how they react in good and bad. But I feel like over time, once they start seeing little changes that they're starting to make and little points that they're starting to win, because it's really, that's becomes the difference, is like those 1 to 2 point difference makers for them, where maybe before they were really passive and now they're not. I think when they finally clicks for them, then they just keep going. And it's not something that we have to constantly go back to so much.
My head is just spinning with so much of what you said. I'm like, you could literally write a book on this. So going back to,
sometimes.
I know, but there's, you said the mentor, the person at St. Mary's said, you will never be a head coach until you are a head coach. And that's with anything in life. We wait till the right time, until we know enough, until, and there's this fear of, am I ready? Who's in my corner? Am I, I'm going to have everything together, but we never learn until we do. So someone giving us permission to go, hey, fail forward, make that mistake, learn. And then you were talking about the 4 pieces. If you're working on 4 things and there's growth in one little area, we call that the 1%. There is, it's the bell curve of high performance. And as you were talking, it was just like, and I can't remember, Robert somebody. So when there's no stress, is like when we're just in our comfort zone and there's no stress, all of our bad habits, sabotaging things stay there. We drink too much, we numb, we game, like whatever. It's just like we're just bored. When you get into this high peak of stress, not too much stress, but enough stress, is where you start to think different thoughts. It's uncomfortable, but you can problem solve. You can think through things. Sometimes it's scary, but man, you're okay to move forward. You want to stay in that right amount of stress. When you get too much stress, on the other side, you can't think. We go into survival mode. And so as a coach, and especially you get new players that come in, and this isn't just for athletes, this is for people in life in general. When we push ourselves to a peak performance, and someone's in your corner who supports you and has you, how do you, that's key for everything. But when you have a group of people who don't think like you, and you as that coach, you have that mental mindset, it's who you are at the core. How do you coach a group of players where it's the crab in the crab pot and you're out like, come on, let's go. But they're like, no, we don't fit this culture. How do you change that?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think I think they also have to want to change. And I think, and unfortunately there are some athletes that don't, right. And don't fit that. And I think that we found that the ones that don't really see it as a very high stress environment where it's too much pressure, right? We're putting too much pressure on them. It's too much stress. And then you have the ones that, again, like they want that. They understand that it's part of the process. Now, can I change and fix everybody? No, I think that they have to be determined to want to be that as well. Like we can give them those things, but if they're not determined to really make those changes themselves, then yeah, we can kind of keep hitting the same nail in the door and it's still not getting in there. And unfortunately, I think with the portal, those things, they can filter out a little bit faster now. Or we're just, hey, maybe this is not the right place for you. And that becomes hard. But I think we give those things time because it is a process. But I also think that the athletes have to want those things for themselves and not see it as a negative, and unfortunately we know we can't change everybody. There's always maybe 1 or 2 that are very fixed mindset and it is the way that it is, right? They may not necessarily believe in it or not. And those things are difficult, but I think that we really try to educate them with whatever we can, how we train. We're very consistent with that. Our assistants are very much in the same mindset. So that reinforcement's very important. Our upperclassmen, they've got amazing stories as well. So we try and reinforce that. We'll have players that go from not playing to all of a sudden being, the next year they're our best pair. And it's just because they were patient through all that time, through their growth. And I think when you have players that do that and you can see that, that becomes something for those players to look at where they're like, oh, okay, well, if I do commit to this process, like I can be on that same path. Right. And that's happening more and more. So we really try to tell those stories, let those athletes tell their story. And we find that even when it gets very difficult for them, that they're still really invested in that process because they know the results that come, and I think for us, it's been a little bit easier this year. We had a really different group this year, really young, a lot of new players. But we had 2 players that stuck with us last year that literally didn't play for us at all. Like they were kind of at our exhibition seed. They really wanted to play though, like always talking to us about, why am I not playing? But in a good way with like, what do I need to do to be able to play? Like it wasn't just a woe is me, you don't like me. It was like, what do you need from me? And it was mindset, skill, tactical. It was a lot of things, never one thing. And I remember one of our players, Julia, she even said right before we were making our lineup for ASUN, because we were deciding whether they were ready or not. It was 2 freshmen at the time. And she even said, she's like, I feel like you don't trust me yet. And I was like, well, you're right. I don't, and I was very honest with her. I was like, I know that you can do it during practice. And I was like, but every time we come into a match, like we're not seeing it. So yeah, like I'm not there yet. We didn't sugarcoat it. We didn't tell her anything else, especially with, again, this people leaving and coming so easily. Like we were very honest with her. And then those 2 players step in for us this year, and they're playing at a 1 seed, 2 seed level now. And being able to tell their story to our team with just like their commitment to everything that we asked them to do. And in doing so, it's created the results that they want to see. Now, and even then, they're not totally where they want to be yet. Like they're still learning a lot. There's still a lot of things that they're getting better at. But, we took them to pairs nationals this year, and that they, it was like, it wasn't even a discussion. Like they were hands down the 2 people that we knew off the bat were going to go because they had earned the right to go. And that was through their work and their commitment to it. So having them this year, being able to go through that kind of transformation and just going through all that adversity and difficulty has made it very, I'm not going to say easy for the rest of the team, but it's different because you can see it, right? You can see the byproduct of 2 players that stuck it out when they didn't have to. And went from ground zero to all the way to the top in just a semester.
So they help drive that culture just with their stories rather than you,
correct.
At the head, be like, no, trust me, this is how it is.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like,
and
I feel like that has helped the rest of the team really trust what we're doing. And because even when they do have failure and difficulty and the team could see us still getting on them, they're still really loyal to us. Like they don't turn around and be like, they don't act like they're arrived. Like they never have acted like they're at the point of where they should be and that we should get off their back. Right. Like they still want more and they still want to learn. And I even told them when they weren't playing that I knew that they would impact our culture in a really positive manner in the future. Cause I could see it. Like you can see those qualities early on, even if they don't know it yet. Like we can still see those things from the right type of people. They have everything else going for them. So yeah, that's been really helpful for us this year. And I think everybody kind of needs those. I think with this new generation, I think when you can visibly see something that is in front of you that you can really work towards and have an example of, I think it helps, and we're very fortunate that we have those 2, and they're barely sophomores. So we're really excited.
That's so cool. Amazing. When I think about somebody who wants to play so bad and it's like, you don't trust me. And the coach goes, you're right. I don't.
Yeah. Sorry.
But that really becomes, so you had a culture because you could have a different coach that goes, you're right. I don't trust you. And that player's gone.
Yeah.
But there was something about these 2 that you could have that conversation, and they showed up and worked even harder to earn that spot. It wasn't that it was given, it was earned, and it was their choice. So how do you, and I know you have to recruit for your culture.
Yeah.
And I always look at it starts top down. So when you're in the throes of the shit and you start to doubt yourself, because I don't know anyone who doesn't at least have some little doubt in the back of their mind.
I have lots of doubts.
So how do you keep yourself in a mindset to show up season after season after season with all the changes? What do you do?
Yeah. It's hard. And I think this last summer was the most difficult. And I think you're seeing it everywhere with, every sport. Coaches are retiring and leaving because it's becoming more challenging. Because I think the reason why we do it is because we love to build athletes, right? We want to see them grow. We love that piece of it. It's not just about winning. I obviously love winning, but I love building teams. Like I love building teams to win, and it's the process of it. So, this summer when we literally, it happened everywhere here, like our men's basketball team won their first conference championship. And I don't know how long, and in a day, their whole team gets wiped out, and then we're the same, like we've been good. And same thing, like, season's over, whole team, gets wiped out except for 3 people.
She lost her entire team.
I lost my entire team.
People.
Now, yes, I lost. Now some graduated. Yes. Yeah. But some, it's like, and you can feel it, right? Like you can feel that something's off, like something's not right. And I'm always trying to trust my instinct because I knew it was going to happen. And I think in the past, like when we had first had players transfer, we really spent a lot of time trying to convince them to stay. And I think this year it was different where, and I really, like, my staff was a big part of it, like their support and being here, and they're committed. Like, I think those things are really important too, because it is very challenging. And I think when you don't have that behind you, it's just like anything else, any other relationship, like it can be really hard to kind of go through it by yourself. And my staff stayed, and they're really committed to what we want to do here, because how we want to do it. But the summer was really hard. Like I really questioned whether I wanted to keep doing this or not, because it's a lot and it's taking more and more to keep players here. But I really went with the, like, I can't convince any of them to stay. Like, you either want to be here or you don't. And if you don't, then that's fine. Thank you. Good luck to you. But like, we also have to move on. So I tried to stay in a really like forward moving mindset rather than getting stuck in like, why are they leaving? What don't they like? Like, tell me why. Can we convince you to stay? Because we knew they had already made up their mind. So I didn't want to put my energy into that, because that became a really like kind of weighing energy when we were first dealing with it. We wanted to put our energy into who wanted to be here. So I really tried to focus on that. And it was hard. It was like anything else. It's a day-to-day getting up and just like, at the end of the day, I've done so much to be here. And that's what I have to keep telling myself when I was getting up in the morning, is like, you've worked so hard for this. Like, I can't be defeated by what's happening. It's happening everywhere. I can't be defeated by everybody. I think at some point everybody was also like kind of wanting us to fail. Because we do well regardless. And that also kind of internally motivates me as well. Like, anything that motivates me. You want to, any type of like competition. But I had to keep telling myself is like, I can't let anything get the best of me, because, I have to get myself up and I have to do this. And yeah, we didn't really know what it was going to be like this year, but we knew we had found a lot of players that wanted to be here so bad for how we run our program. Like, they wanted to come here because of me or that or this, like because of Stetson. And so we knew that their intention was pure. And even after our first fall tournament, I told them that I enjoy coming to work for them, because they threw themselves in. They also could have come into this situation with a lot of uncertainty, and spend their time on the negative energy of like why people left or why this. But instead it was like, no, we're not rebuilding. We don't rebuild here. We do, like, we are always going to do. And we wanted to focus on them and not focus on the past and what had and this and that. And we never even bring it up, talk about it. And then again, I think the loyalty of the 3 players that did stay for us and why they stayed and those things that they said, I think really tied it in, because they also didn't have to stay. I mean, talk about uncertainty and doubt. Like, they were freshmen. I had 1 freshman and 1 senior that was going to return, and everybody just bailed on them. And they could have done the same, just like how everybody's telling you to do one thing, right? Like, they could have taken that other route because everybody was doing it. And instead they stayed committed. And honestly, I thank them, because their piece of it really helped me kind of get over that last little hump, because they were also staying for the right reasons. And because they believed in what we were doing here. And whether you have 1 person like that or 15 to start with, like, that's all you need, right? And they really kept me going. And then by the time I came back here, now it's not even, now I'm like, well, let's just bring it. And now we got to be prepared for people to leave, but I can't sit in it anymore with what's happening. It's happening to everybody. And I think we just have to focus on finding the right people and really just why do you want to come here? You know, it's not what am I going to give you, or are you going to play? Like I said, I'm not going to guarantee people playing time just because they want to come somewhere. It's like, you have to earn it, work for it. And if you don't want those things, then you can't come here. And I have to be comfortable with that. And I am. But it was hard, but it's not that I don't doubt myself. I just don't. Yeah, I just have to work through it, right? Every day and try to get through it and try to put the pieces together till we get to what we actually want. Because that's really the only choice I have. You know, I don't have the answers, and I don't know if we're going to win, and I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know that I found that entire team in like 4 weeks, and I just went like this to all the players that I wanted. And I hadn't even figured out how I was going to get them into school, if I had enough money. I didn't know anything. I didn't know their grades. I just was like, these are the people we want. And now I'm going to figure out how to get them into school and do everything else. So
we need business leaders. We need more coaches like Kristina. You know, so when we did the last podcast, you are living the number 1. It is having a vision, being so clear, because sometimes, yes, shit happens. There's adversity. It gets muddy. It's hard. But when you know your vision, and I love what you said, I love winning, but I also love building teams that win. And that you said that it's like this, everything just came out of you. You just came alive. That's knowing who you are and your purpose, being so connected and committed to your why. And when you have that, whoo, it's game on.
Yeah.
It's game on.
And I learned that from you, the why. I knew the what, like, and that's all I really can tell myself. And we make our players do that as well. We make them figure out their why, and we have them come back to it all the time. We have them tell the team, because you're right. Like, there's nobody that is immune to the doubt and to the, you know, getting through those. And I tell the team this all the time. It's not like I don't think to myself, like, okay, this is it for me, I should do something else. Like, I think everybody has those thoughts, but you either know why you're doing it and it brings you back, or you fizzle out. So I'm not a fizzler.
I was reading before we got on here about adversity in different kinds. And literally what you were saying, when you know your why and you're committed to it, no matter what happens, you can grab a hold of that. So adversity, personal challenges, so loss of loved one, illness, financial hardships, professional obstacles, emotional struggles, anxiety, depression, self-doubt, limiting beliefs. We have adversity everywhere in life, everywhere. It doesn't matter who we are. And when you know who you are, when you are committed, when you have clarity of vision, when you're surrounded by people who believe in you, saying, you're not going to get it unless you actually do it. And you stop listening to everyone else who tells you what you should or shouldn't do, and you listen to that voice inside of you and you stay true to your value, this is what you get to create. A culture of badasses that get up, they trust the process, they play for each other, and you play for them. So as we tie this together, if you have a coach, a business owner listening to this who is struggling, so that's the first thing, what would your advice be to them?
Oof. Yeah, it's just, I think, like you said, that knowing the why and the vision, I think honestly, most of the success comes from overcoming challenges, like having resiliency. I don't know any success stories where it's been easy. And I think that everybody can see somebody being really successful or a pro athlete and they can think, oh, those things are really easy for them. And the reality is, it's just they've probably overcome more challenges than most because they keep going, and that's essentially what it is. Like, you can get to the top of the mountain, roll back down just to get to another mountain that you have to climb. Like, there's no easy way. And even when you get past that first level of difficulty, there's still probably 20 more in front of you that you have to get through. And I think the most successful people are the ones that keep going, that understand the why, and they keep pushing. Because like I said, I think eventually I know that on the other end of it, the things that I want are going to be there. I told you something like the storm clears the path. And I tell myself all the time, like, we have to get through the storm to clear the path. And sometimes that storm lasts forever. Or we see the path and then the storm comes back. But you really, I see challenges, and anybody trying to be in the leadership or, like I said, business, like, for me, the challenges are the good spot. That's a sweet spot. Those are the things I want, because I know success is on the other end of it. And I think if it were easy, then success would not be on the end of anything else. So, I think just knowing that it's really hard, but the more you get through those mountains constantly, and then also know that they're going to still keep coming, then the more success you will have, because it's not that somebody is better than somebody else. It's just that we have the tenacity to keep going further than other people do. Really.
I love that. The storm clears the path. And then sometimes the storm comes back. You're like, no, not again.
Yeah. 2024, I'm like, too many storms. Get away. I don't need any more.
But it's so amazing if you actually, in life, if we step back and we look at the storms and who we are as a result, when we lean in, when we don't give up, when we don't quit, when we're connected to a vision and we fight, what happens as a result of it, it defines us even more. Our character is so fun.
Yeah. That's where growth happens. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So same question. You have an athlete listening, or not even just an athlete. You have someone who is struggling. They want to move someplace in their life. They don't know what to do, and they're stuck. What would your words of advice be?
Yeah, this one's not hard, but I think for me, when I feel like I'm stuck, I honestly try not to think about it, not avoid it. That's not what I do. But I think sometimes we can sit with our thoughts so much where we try to decide what it is I should be doing versus not be doing, right? What is the right thing for me to do? How should I do it? If I do it this way, this will happen. And if I don't, this will happen. So you're creating a lot of scenarios that have not really played out at all. And you don't really even know, like I said, everything that I planned out didn't happen even not even 1% to what I did. So I really learned early on that, and those things cause anxiety and cause you to be anxious and second guess yourself, right? And create fear. And then you get stuck. You don't do anything because you're just overthinking what the right thing to do or how I should be doing it. So I really don't do that at all. I really just, if I sit with it, and I sit with it for a while, it's really trying to go with my gut instinct of what I feel like I need to do. And then the first thing that comes to my mind and because that's usually the thing that's telling me what I need to do. So I try to listen to my body a little bit more in that situation rather than thinking about it. And then, like I said, I usually take the unknown path a little bit more because I don't know what the answer is going to be, but that usually, like, the hard path is usually the right path. And I usually say that to myself as well. Like, if I really, like, that's usually the right thing to do is the hardest thing for me to do. Okay. So that's one. And then I have to listen to my gut about it. And most of the time my gut is right. Even when I'm recruiting, like, I can feel, I'm like, nope, that's not somebody I want. And if I have to convince myself that that's what I need to do, it's not the right answer for me because I'm convincing myself of what I should be doing. So you kind of just gotta, like, I try to really be present in the moment with what I'm doing. And yeah, sometimes that's harder than most. And some days I do have to get up and be like, hey, like, okay, today I'm not going to do this. And, and I think when people are struggling to make a decision, that can happen. They can get stuck in a rut, right? But I think you just have to get up and you have to walk towards something and try not to think about it so much because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. But you have to lean into it and then see what the outcome is going to be. And it still may not be the outcome you want, but at least you got up and did something about it rather than sit there and do nothing about it, because that is also a choice. And I think that's the thing. It's like we have the choice. We have the choice to get up and do something, or we have the choice to sit there. And even when I was very young in coaching, I used to sit with losses for a long time. Like, it would really just, like, I could sit in it for a long time and be really upset. And now, I have kids and that changes everything because they're my children and they can change the environment the minute you walk in the door and you're like, hey, I don't get to be this person for them right now. That's not fair. But I tell this to myself and I tell our players the same thing. Like, you have an hour. You have an hour. You have an hour. If you want to sit with it, sit with it. But after that, you got to get up and you got to move on. And you can do something about it, or you can sit and feel sorry for yourself. Like, that's the choice, right? And so after the hour, you can sit and sulk and do what you want and complain. And the refs made the bad call. I'm sorry I'm lost. But after the hour, and I've literally timed some of my kids, I'll walk by and I'm like, you have 30 seconds left. You have 30 seconds.
That's awesome.
And then after that, you have to move on. Like, the page turns, right? The page has to turn. So we have to move forward because that is life. Right? Life keeps moving. And that is really the only choice that we get to make, is to keep moving forward or to sit, right? And sit and be stuck. And that is something we all have to be able to do.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. That's a mic drop. That's a mic drop.
I do. Some of them are like, get away from me. And I'm like, no, for real. No. I've been timing you.
But people need that. So they need to know, first and foremost, that it's okay to feel. It's okay to have all the frustration, and then it's okay. Then we need to move forward. So feel it and move forward. And
Yep. Yeah. And I think personally, even when I've had personal struggles, I do the same. Like, and honestly, I think from coming to you, I'm doing this a lot better now because I'm really aware of my feelings now. Like, I'm like, okay, I'll sit with this for a while. Like, I don't feel super great. I'm sure
you have an hour.
Yeah, an hour. But I give myself those little deadlines too. I'm like, okay, you just sat here. Like, I wrote about, for me, writing and journaling is really helpful for me. Even if I don't do it every day, I think when I'm really struggling, like, if I blurt it out on a page, like, it gets out of my head and I feel like I can move forward in some way. And that doesn't mean that I don't go back the next day and I still don't feel good, but I know that it's inching me towards the direction that I want to go. And then after that, I'm like, okay, Kristina, like, you've been sitting in this for a week now. Like, it's the same thing. I have a choice. I can either move forward and understand that I need to learn something out of this, or again, I can sit here and be in misery. And I don't want to be in misery. We can all choose our own happiness. So that's all. It's the same thing. We have to talk to ourselves to get ourselves up sometimes, but that's all we can do.
So good. So good. Oh my gosh, this went so fast.
Yeah. I told you, I can talk forever.
I know. But so many great nuggets. So many, just the power of your message, I believe everyone needs to hear. And I'm fired up. I'm like, it's 2025. I needed to be reminded of some of these, right? It's just like we're in the rink. It's like we have a choice. We have a choice to get up. It's a new day. Go after what we want. And the hard stuff, is the good stuff.
Yep. It is the good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for joining us. That was great.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We really hoped you enjoyed that episode as much as we did hanging out with Kristina. And we know that, I mean, you can tell just by listening to her, she's going to continue to have amazing success over there at Stetson. In case you didn't know, we do work with university athletic teams. We do leadership training for coaches. We do team development activities. So if you're interested in that, if you're a university coach, if you have a team, we would love to get involved, jump on a call, see how we can help. You can email us podcast@drivenleadership.com, and you can find out more about what we do and how we do it. So thanks so much for listening, everybody, and we'll see you guys next week for the next episode.